last week, we're almost at the end of the book, I have to tell you, but last week, the three main concepts that came up were, don't give in to your fears. If you do, you won't be able to talk to your heart. If a person is living out his personal legend, he knows everything he needs to know, and that there's only one thing that can make a dream impossible to achieve, and that is the fear of failure. And then the very last thing, which is how the excerpt from last week ended, was usually the threat of death, whether actual or metaphorical, makes people a lot more aware of their lives. And so where we left off in the story is the alchemist and the boy are in the desert. They have been captured by tribesmen, have been taken to this camp, and the chieftains there have been told by the alchemist that the boy is this super powerful sorcerer. He's so powerful that he can turn himself into the wind, okay? And if he can't turn himself into the wind, then they're willing to give up their lives. Of course, he did all of this without the boy's permission, right? Okay, so day one, the boy is still very much convinced that he has no idea how to turn himself into the wind. But the alchemist reminds him, the world is only the visible aspect of God. What alchemy does is to bring spiritual perfection into contact with the material plane. And so what we are reminded of here is that there is no separation. There is no inner and no outer. It is all one. As is repeated throughout the book, all is one, many, many times. We also are reminded that alchemy isn't just about turning lead into gold, but it is about allowing us the opportunity to more fully embody who and what we are. And so whether we call it love, God, creativity, whatever, it's about feeling that, experiencing that, showing up as that, amplifying it for everyone and everything around us. Now, the boy is wondering why, when there's this threat of life or threat of death, why isn't the alchemist more worried? And he says, well, I already know how to turn myself into the wind, so no problem for me, right? So, day two, the boy is still opening up to how am I going to do this? How am I going to turn myself into the wind? And so he decides to go and sit on a cliff and just listen and talk to his heart. Because by now, he and his heart have become friends. Now, the thing is, though, he knows that as he's sitting there really trying to open up, that both he and the desert can sense his fear. On the third day, the chief met with his officers. He called the alchemist to the meeting and said, "Let's go see the boy who can turn himself into the wind." "Let's," the alchemist answered. The boy took them to the cliff where he had been on the previous day. He told them all to be seated. "It's going to take a while," the boy said. "We're in no hurry," the chief answered. "We are men of the desert." The boy looked out at the horizon. There were mountains in the distance, and there were dunes, rocks, and plants that insisted on living where survival seemed impossible. There was the desert that he wandered in for so many months. Despite all that time, he knew only a small part of it. Within that small part, he had found an Englishman, caravans, tribal wars, and an oasis with 50,000 palm trees and 300 wells. And so as he's sitting there, the desert is wondering, why are you here? What do you want? And so the boy tells the desert of his plight, that the alchemist told these chiefsmen or these tribesmen, chieftains, that he could turn himself into the wind, but that he doesn't know how. But really, he wants to be able to do it because the thing he wants most in the world is to realize his personal legend so he can get back to his beloved Fatima that he met recently, right? So the desert asks, well, what is love? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand this. And then as the boy is trying to explain to him about love and how everyone and everything is love and that there's this incredible reciprocity and circulation of love being offered and received with everyone and everything, the desert starts complaining about the fact that the falcons are eating the game that he worked so hard to go and put all over the sands and the dunes. But the boy says to the desert, look, this is the whole reason for you to exist. This is the whole reason for your being. You created the game to nourish the falcon. and the falcon then nourishes man. And eventually, many will nourish your sands where the game will once again flourish. And so the desert agrees to help the boy, but he says, you know what? I can only offer you my sands. I can't actually turn you into the wind. For that, you're going to have to go and talk to the wind. And so he tells the boy to go and talk to the wind. Let me find where the boy is talking to the wind. All right. So the boy begins talking to the wind, and he says, we're the same thing, you and I. And the wind is like, no, that's not true. And the boy says, I learned the alchemist's secrets in my travels. I have inside me the winds, the deserts, the oceans, the stars, and everything created in the universe. We are all made by the same hand, and we have the same soul. I want to be like you, able to reach every corner of the world, cross the seas, blow away the sands that cover my treasure, and carry the voice of the woman I love. I heard what you were talking about the other day with the alchemist, the wind said. He said that everything has its own personal legend, but people can't turn themselves into the wind. Just teach me to be the wind for a few moments, the boy said, so you and I can talk about the limitless possibilities of people and the winds. The wind's curiosity was aroused, something that had never happened before. It wanted to talk about those things, but it didn't know how to turn a man into the wind. And look how many things the wind already knew how to do. It created deserts, sank ships, felled entire forests, and blew through cities filled with music and strange noises. It felt that it had no limits, yet here was a boy saying that there were other things the wind should be able to do. And so then the boy has to tell the wind about love. And the wind listens, and he says, well, I've overheard talk about love from the people that, have been in the towns that I've blown through from time to time. But he says, you know what? I don't know enough about it, and I also can't help you by myself. But I can help you if you go and try and take a look at the heavens and you talk to heaven. And so he says, I will blow harder so that the sands can blow harder, and that's exactly what happens. And so the wind blows so hard, all the sands come up and block out the sun so that the boy can finally turn up to the sun and ask the sun for help. And as the wind is blowing, then the sands are all over the camps, and the men are starting to get afraid, and the horses are starting to fly away from their tethers and all sorts of things. But the chieftain is looking at this, and the alchemist is looking at this, knowing what is taking place. And so the boy turns, and he talks to the sun. And after the sun tells him, I know all about love. This is what love is for me. The boy says, no. It's not love to be static like the desert, nor is it love to roam the world like the wind. And it's not love to see everything from a distance like you do. Love is the force that transforms and improves the soul of the world. When I first reached to it, I thought the soul of the world was perfect. But later, I could see that it was like other aspects of creation and had its own passions and wars. It is we who nourish the soul of the world, and the world we live in will be either better or worse, depending on whether we become better or worse. And that's where the power of love comes in. Because when we love, we always strive to become better than we are. So what do you want of me? The sun asked. I want you to help me turn myself into the wind, the boy answered. And so the sun is supposedly the wisest being in creation, but here the sun is also stumped. And so the wind, overhearing this conversation, starts howling with delight because the wind is like, oh my God, the sun is supposed to be this know-it-all, and even the sun can't turn the boy into the wind. The sun has its limitations too. And so the wind is excited. It screamed with delight and blew harder than ever. The tents were being blown from their ties to the earth, and the animals were being freed from their tethers. On the cliff, the men clutched at each other as they sought to keep from being blown away. And so then the sun tells the boy, you have to talk to the hand that wrote all. That's who can really help you. And so the boy's like, okay. And he turns to the hand that wrote all as all of this commotion is going on. The wind is like, ha, 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 the sun. And the sun is like, I don't know. And so all of this is happening. And all of a sudden, the boy turns to the hand that wrote all, and everything gets still. And it's like the only thing that is there is the boy. And instead of asking questions, instead of offering any kind of beseeching or begging, all of a sudden, a current of love rushed from his heart, and the boy began to pray. It was a prayer that he had never said before because it was a prayer without words or pleas. His prayer didn't give thanks for his sheep having found new pastures. It didn't ask the boy be able to sell more crystal. And it didn't beseech that the woman he had met continue to await his return. In the silence, the boy understood that the desert, the wind, and the sun were also trying to understand the signs written by the hand, and were seeking to follow their paths and to understand what had been written on a single emerald. He saw that omens were scattered throughout the earth and in space, and that there was no reason or significance attached to their appearance. He could see that not the deserts, nor the winds, nor the sun, nor people knew why they had been created, but that the hand had a reason for all of this, and that only the hand could perform miracles or transform the sea into a desert or a man into the wind. The boy reached through to the soul of the world and saw that it was a part of the soul of God. And he saw that the soul of God was his own soul, and that he, a boy, could perform miracles. And so at the end of the day, the men were terrified at the boy's sorcery, but there were two people who were smiling. The alchemist, because he had found his perfect disciple, and the chief, because that disciple had understood the glory of God. And so in this portion, what we are reminded of is that in the end, even when we ask for and receive help from external sources, from community, from people we know, from resources, from opportunities, experiences, ultimately, in order for us to truly walk our path, to realize our dream, to realize our personal legend, even with all of that being helpful, we need to turn within. We need to remember who we are, and we need to anchor ourselves in that knowing, that certainty that love is our true nature, and this is what we need to show up as and allow to guide us every step of the way. And so from the outside, it kind of looked like a miracle that the boy was able to turn himself into the wind. But in truth, or from a spiritual perspective, this was spiritual perfection being brought into contact with the material plane. And so the title of my talk today is, You Already Know, You Already Are. And even though I wanted something super cool with like the wind in the desert, what I settled on was this tiny flower growing out of ground that looks so parched and dead, it looks like nothing should be able to grow out of that. And yet there is this tiny, beautiful, colorful, resilient flower. And this is just like what happened with the boy, right? There's no way. I have no idea. I don't know how. This shouldn't be possible. And yet, he did it. So in the end, the three main things in this section that I would like us to open up to and consider is that, just has been mentioned throughout the book numerous times, all is one. That there is no separation, and that the alchemy of knowing with certainty that love is our true nature is what allows for that love we are to express and to express itself and be experienced more fully in life. The second, that love is the interconnectivity and the reciprocity of all that is, was, and ever will be. And the third, that no matter how much we ask for help and receive help from external sources, ultimately, when we learn to trust that we already know everything we could ever possibly require to navigate even the most challenging experiences or circumstances, the love we are at our core will always guide and support us every step of the way. Thank you, and so it is.